Hi, I'm Jill Thomas, and over this series of videos I hope to help you unravel some of the mysteries of endurance riding so that you can enjoy the sport as I have over the years. We're going to be covering the set speed rides on this, starting at the beginning with the Bronze Buckle Qualifier, which is 20 miles at a speed between 6.5 and 8 miles an hour. You'll be following a person who's never done a ride before on a young horse. I hope you enjoy it, and I certainly hope you learn, as I will, as I'm making the videos. Before you can compete in endurance race rides, you have to go through a series of set speed rides. These start at 20 miles with the Bronze Buckle Qualifier. You have to do that between a speed of 6.5 and 8 miles an hour. After you've successfully passed the vet there, you can then move on to the Bronze Buckle Final, which is 30 miles at a minimum speed of 7 miles an hour. Hopefully, with not too many problems, you'll then move on to the 40-mile classes, or the Silver Stirrup Qualifier, which is 40 miles at a minimum speed of 7 miles an hour again. This will then take you hopefully through to your Silver Stirrup Final, which is 50 miles at a minimum speed of 7.5 miles an hour. No horse is allowed to race in the first 12 months of its registration with the Endurance Society. In that time, you'll be learning how to pace your horse, how to cover different terrain at different speeds. Horses have to be a minimum of 5 years old before they can take part in the sport of endurance riding. At 5 years old, they can take part in the 20s and the 30s. As a 6-year-old, they can go on to slightly longer distances, but they're still not allowed to race. And from 7 years on, they can take part in all the discipline, speeds and distances. If you go out and you buy yourself a 12-year-old horse, although you still have to go through all the grades first, starting with your Bronze Buckle Qualifier, your horse can go straight through, but again, you can't race it for the first 12 months. Five-year-olds can take part in competitions, the Bronze Buckle Qualifiers, the Bronze Buckle Finals, and the Silver Stirrup classes. A maximum distance for a 2-day ride is 30 miles on the first day and 30 miles on the second day. For the whole season, their competitive miles must not exceed 250. And that includes any rides that you've got to the final vetting and unfortunately failed for any reason. It's no good thinking you can sneak another ride in because 40 miles haven't counted. They have. 6-year-olds can compete in rides up to the Silver Stirrup Final, but they must go through at least one Bronze Buckle Qualifier, one Bronze Buckle Final and 2 Silver Stirrup Qualifiers before they can tackle the 50-mile final. But that's great because that's exactly what you, the rider, are going to have to do anyway. So you and your horse will be going through the grades together. It's just that if you change horse partway through a season, you have to start again, unless the horse has already got the qualifications. 6-year-olds can also take part in the 60-mile Golden Stirrup Finals. 7-year-olds may go through and compete in Gold Series rides or race rides. But again, they have to be registered and through the grades for at least 12 months. Juniors, as young as 10 years old, can take part in endurance rides, but they must be accompanied by a riding adult. Certainly for the Bronze Buckle Qualifier, which they have to do 2 of, and the Bronze Buckle Final, and again, the juniors have to do 2. The Silver Stirrup Qualifier, they can ride unaccompanied, but it is better for them, unless they're very, very confident in going out into unknown territory by themselves, if somebody can be arranged to go out and just keep them company and make sure they don't get into trouble. 40 miles is a long way for anybody to go, and if you're only 10 and you start to worry about whether you've got lost or whether you're not quite right on your time, nice to have somebody there next to you just to reassure you. From 11 years and on, they can take part in the 50-mile Silver Stirrup finals, and then from 12 years and on, they can take part in the Gold Series, and that includes, strangely enough, the race rides. So if they're good enough, and the ponies or horses are good enough, there's no reason why they can't find themselves racing against the likes of myself on Egyptian Khalifa.
Hi, I'm here with Amanda Nicholson, and she's just received all her maps and everything for the forthcoming ride. So I'm here to answer any questions that she might have, because Mandy's in the same position as you yourselves, and she's never actually entered a ride before. Mandy?
Right, just wondering, I'm in class 6.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say really.
Right, the red dot indicates the start, the halfway and the finish, and you're following the red route, which goes from the start there through the yellow dot, which is that one there, and then it turns off and comes through another plain yellow dot there. It also goes past the blue one, which is an indication that there's water there en route. Takes you up through to checkpoint 1/4, and then on to checkpoint 2, which is around and up through there, and then you go through checkpoint 3 and 5, because some horses are going to do this course twice.
Oh right, okay.
And then from checkpoint 3 down back there to the start and finish.
Okay.
The course down through here, through 6 and 7, is nothing to do with you at all. That's for the race riders and for the people who are doing the longer distance rides. So all you have to worry about is the actual red route and following yourself around. Also, this tends to come off. So what you might have to do is ink it in a stronger felt tip to make sure that it stays on there. And you can also cover that map with sticky back plastic so that if it rains.
So this red route, I mean that says 2, does that mean 2 miles?
No, 2 is for checkpoint 2.
Oh right, just checkpoint 3 and 4 and then that's the finish.
Yes, yeah. And also on your talk through, on this one that's got your name, your riding number, it's 11:15, so you must be at the vet by that time. But before you go to the vet, you have to go to the farrier and have your shoes checked. Down to the vet for that time. You must be on time, even if they don't vet you on time. You have to be there. And then your start time is 11:45. So from your vet time to your start time, you've got half an hour to pass the vet, tack up, go to the tack inspector to have your tack checked.
All within half an hour.
Warm up.
What happens if the vet's really late?
Then you can actually have a time allowance.
Okay.
But you have to make sure that that's sorted before you leave the vetting and things like that. You shouldn't be too late on the first vetting because you've got a later time. The first horse is vetted at 8:15.
Okay.
So there's quite a bit of
time in between.
Yeah. It tells you on this that you're entering class 6, the venue, there's refreshments, hot and cold, there's toilets there, and water's going to be available for the horses. You've got an emergency telephone number. It tells you the route, that classes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 8 ride the red route, and you have checkpoints 1, 2 and 3. The 30 and 50 mile riders go past the venue again and then onto the blue route through checkpoints 4 and 5. The 40 and 50 mile riders have a vet check halfway round. But it goes on down through, there's a gated ride, so there's a 50 mile race ride taking part as well. Gives you your mileage here, so it's 5.5 miles from the start to checkpoint 1, it's 11.5 miles to checkpoint 2, 17 miles to checkpoint 3 and 21 miles to get you back to the venue. Mm-hmm. And at the very bottom, the typical good luck and have a great ride. But please read all the enclosed information.
Which obviously is pretty important.
Yeah.
Right, now how do I know how long it's going to take me to get to the first checkpoint?
Right, on one of your sheets there, you should have a list given to you on the mileage. That's it. And here it's actually got that the start to checkpoint 1 is 5.5 miles. So if we get a piece of paper, it's checkpoint 1 is 5.5. Now you have to do it, it's between 6.5 and 8 miles an hour. So to do that, the way, I mean, everybody has a different way of working this out.
How do I know how do I know I'm supposed to do it between 6.5 minutes and 8.5 minutes per mile?
In the rule book, it will actually give you your bronze buckle qualifying time. That's going to be between the 6.5 miles an hour and the 8 miles an hour.
That tells you in the book.
It tells you in the book, yeah. So to work your times out for that, checkpoint 1 is 5.5 miles.
Okay.
So the way I do it is if you have 60 minutes and you divide those by the 6.5 for 6.5 miles an hour. So you divide that by 6.5 for the miles per hour, and that gives you 9.2 minutes per mile.
Okay.
So 6.5 miles per hour has to be covered every mile at 9.2 minutes. So that's the slowest time you can cover every mile on that course. If you have 60 minutes and you divide those by the 8 miles an hour, that gives you 7.5 minutes per mile.
Okay.
So 8 miles per hour averages the horse doing 7.5 minutes per mile.
So ideally, I should do 8. Really, I need to sort of be in between.
You need to do about 7 to 7.2, 7.3, something like that. It's between 7 and 7.5 miles an hour. But to work your actual time out so that you know the slowest and the fastest speed you're allowed around the course, 5.5 miles multiplied by 9.2 minutes, because you're covering 5.5 miles, and every mile you're doing is going to be at just over 9 minutes a mile. That comes to 50 minutes and a few seconds. So if we take the 50 minutes, so that is the slowest speed that you can get to checkpoint 1. And with the 8 miles per hour, it's 5.5 for 5.5 miles again. Multiply it by 7.5 minutes. That comes to 41 minutes.
So I've got to get to the checkpoint somewhere in between.
Yeah. I mean, if,
Ideally.
yes, yeah. If you aimed for, 45 minutes there, you're roughly halfway between the two. The main thing is that when you get to checkpoint 1, you're no slower than 50 minutes. It doesn't matter if you're a little bit faster than the 41 minutes a mile. If you've gone through there in, say, 38, it just means that further on the course you're going to have to slow up, because your time is actually very important on the finish. Your overall time from the time you started to the time you cross the finish line, although they won't stop you coming in, if you're too fast, you're actually eliminated. And it's such a pity for the sake of walking a mile or something like that. So it's 21 miles in total. So if I multiply 21 miles by the 9.2 minutes, you've got 193 minutes. So if I divide that by 3 for the hours, that gives me something that I can't understand. So if we do it again, so if we multiply the total distance you're doing, which is 21 miles, multiply that by the 9.2, that's going to give you 193. If I take away the hours, there's 3 hours in there, because that's 180 minutes.
Yeah.
So if I take away 180, that gives me 3 hours and 13 minutes. That's the slowest you can come across the finish line.
Okay.
And the fastest you can come across is 21 miles again times the 7.5 miles per hour, 157 minutes, take 2 hours, which is 120 minutes. So it's 2 hours 37. So you want to arrive somewhere between just over 2 hours 37 and 3 hours 13.
Right, and I've also got this veterinary record card. Obviously I have to take that with me, do I?
Yes, you do. And you also have to fill it in before you need it. What you have to do with this is put the ride name, which is the Cotswolds ride. So you fill that in and the date. your name and the horse's name, his age, his height and his colour and his sex. And in that box you actually put your riding number.
The number that I'm using on the day
Yeah.
that they've allocated to me.
And that's all you fill in. Take it with you to the first vetting and they'll keep it. It'll be filled in, and when you get your rosette and everything, 30 minutes after you've had your final vetting, what they'll do, they'll give you this back copy, and that's something for you to keep, and then you can use it as a record on your horse's fitness.
Yeah.
If you did
Okay.
that ride this year and you felt, right, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do the same ride next year, you can actually look at the 2 veterinary record cards and see the difference that that 12 months has made to your
Yeah.
horse. For those people that have had a problem filling in the official ride entry form, it's quite complicated and it looks horrendous. For those of you who've never seen one before, it can be very off-putting. So we're just going to run through the basics on how to fill the form in. First of all, the ride name. So at the top there you'd put in, for this ride, Cotswolds Ride.
Yep.
The date of the ride,
Which
Yeah.
is?
whatever.
Yeah.
And then you're entering class 6. I think that goes there, doesn't it?
How do I...
Yeah. And the distance is 20
20
miles. Right. Next bit is yours owner's title. So that's your name in there.
Don't take the Nicky out of my surname, my name either. My middle name.
I resisted. I did resist. Your address.
Pretty basic stuff.
Yeah, but there again. Right. When it comes across to the rider's details, if you're the owner and you're riding as well, you don't have to refill that in. What you can write right across it is owner. Are you a British Endurance member?
Yes.
Yes, so if you just cross out the no on that. And then have you got your membership number?
Yeah.
Right.
So fill
So-
that in.
Yeah.
277.
Does your horse have an endurance logbook?
No.
No. So in that case, just put a line in there. Is he registered with the Breed Society?
Registered with the Arab Horse Society.
So just write AHS in there. With some rides, you would need proof of registration if there was an award for a purebred or part-bred Arab or anything like that. So you just send a photocopy of your registration certificate.
Okay.
Have you booked stabling? Yes.
Yes.
Because unfortunately you're going to have a night away. Now, rider qualifications, none of this has to be filled in because as yet you haven't qualified. If you were going to have to be doing your bronze buckle final, what you'd do is you'd write in the ride name, which is the Cotswolds Ride, the class, which is the bronze buckle qualifier or BBQ, and the date. And also your horse has to qualify, so you would have to put your ride name and the class and the date in there. If you had a horse that had qualified before you, so that his date was different, it wouldn't matter. As long as you and the horse have qualified, it doesn't have to be together. It could be with different riders and different horse and things like that.
Okay.
But as long as you've got the dates. And then you just have to fill in the entry fee, any stabling charge, accommodation if you were staying in some of the race courses, you can stay in the dormitories. And then at the bottom, all you need to do is name, sign and date it.
Make sure I send a check with it.
Yes, you need to send a check. Some rides will actually ask for you to send a copy of your flu vaccination as well, and they won't accept your entry without it. But there is usually a thing on there saying...
That they want it.
Yes,
They tell exactly on here what to send.
that's right, yeah. Okay, that's that one. And your stable request form, you put in the name of the ride, so it's the Cotswolds Ride. Again, you have to fill in if you're the owner put in the owner. If the rider is different, then you pop in the rider's name. Again, like the other form, if it's the owner riding, just write across there, owner, name of your horse, the class that he's entered in, and the height of the horse. Because if they're putting into stables, at a yard or something like that, if it's a particularly big horse, they're going to have to find it a decent sized stable. Tick which nights along there that you wish to be stabled for, and if you want to have shavings, then you do have to put on the form that they must have shavings. You do need your equine influenza vac or your flu vac certificate. Then you sign it and date it, your total number of horses, which would be 1, the fee per night if you know it, how many nights, and the total fee. If you don't know how much it's going to cost, just put the total nights. Accommodation where available is usually the race courses where they'll put you up in the dormitories. Male names, female names, date and approximate time of arrival. That's so that an owner of a yard can be there for you and everything else. The owner expects to stay at the venue or something like that, and then rider expects to stay, again, just write owner. If you particularly want to stable your horse next to a friend's or something like that, then you have to put the horse's competition name, not his stable name.
Right.
I mean, if you know him by Max and he's really called Terrafia, you could write Max and they
They're not
wouldn't
gonna
find
know.
it. So you have to put his actual competition name and the rider's name. And then if you've got your own caravan going, and whether you're towing caravan behind your horse box, if you are, the length and things like that. And then the bottom is for the office only. And that's it. You send that off with your entry form. You send a stamped address envelope, and on the front of the entry that you actually send these away in, on the top left-hand corner, you just write ride entry and underline it, so that the person that it's going to doesn't have to go through everything looking for their private post. They can see it's a ride entry and they can put it to the side.
Right. Yeah.
And that's all you have to do. What equipment will you need to do a 20-mile competition on your horse? Well, this around me is the very basic. If I'm racing 100 miles in a day, then I can all but double this easily. So where shall we start? Very important are the water containers. I find 4 is quite sufficient for any horse that's just doing the 20 miles. And a couple of the slosh bottles can be refilled easily by your backup crew. The speed we're going to be doing on a 20-mile competition is nowhere near as fast as if you were doing a 100-mile race ride. So it's quite easy for the crew to refill them every time they've seen you. If your horse doesn't allow you to use the slosh bottle, then you need at least 1 bucket and some sponges so that the horse can be washed down for you. Then we start on the rugs that you're going to need. A cooler or a wicker way, a cotton sheet or a day rug, a waterproof rug, because the chances are at some competition is going to rain. You want a lightweight rug that's not going to fly around in the wind, but is going to keep the horse dry. A warmer rug, just in case the weather turns very cold, and then a nice pure wool rug to keep the horse warm at the end of the competition. Those are the very basic rugs that you'll need. If you're travelling overnight to a competition, don't forget to allow yourself travel rugs for the horse and also rugs for the night for the stable. Feed is very important, so what I tend to do is measure out the feed and put it into carrier bags. It's very easy when you're away from home competing to give the horse more than it's used to, and you can end up getting problems with the horse tying up and things like that. Leg wraps. These don't look very much at the moment, but when they've been soaked in water for an hour, they can take out any of the stress and strains of the competition, especially if it's been a hard ride and there's been a lot of either very stony or very tarmac going. You're going to have to find your way around this course, so you're going to have to carry the map and your race times. You can use something like this that'll go around the neck and you can have your times in the back of it. If the horse is going to sweat during the competition, then you're going to have to replace the electrolytes. I find that something like this, very easy to use. You can add this to your sugar beet water, you can add it to the feed, you can use it every day at home during competition training. It's nice and easy, and it's got full instructions on it, so your backup crew can't really go very far wrong on this. If you put too much electrolytes into the water, you might find to start with the horse will refuse to drink. Therefore, the best thing to do is just add a small amount to start with, and as the heat increases and you increase the distance of your competitions, you'll then find out the tolerance level that your horse will accept. Also, another good thing to use is garlic. As the horse sweats, it releases the odour through the pores, helping to keep the flies away. I find to use the granular garlic is far better. It's much cleaner and it's much easier to take away from home, especially if you're travelling for any length of time. Another useful tool is an umbrella. This is ideal for your backup crew. They can use it if the weather is really bad, or if it's extremely hot, it can be used as a sun parasol. There's nothing worse than being out there for a long period of time, either cooking or freezing. And also, if your horse is waiting to be vetted during the competition, you can actually use it over the horse to help to keep some of the worst of the weather off it. Get your horse used to this at home, because it'll put your pulse rate up if you try and do it while you're at a competition. And the last thing you want to do is fail the final vetting, because you've been trying to help the horse and all you've done is put the pulse rate above the elimination level. When you're out and about competing, it's quite possible that your horse is going to lose a shoe. So make sure you take a spare set that your own farrier has already fitted to the horse. If you're only doing 20 miles, then one full set is more than enough. If you have a horse that's prone to pull shoes, then it's advisable to take at least another set of front shoes with you as well. When you're out on course, if you lose a shoe, what are you going to do about it? Well, one thing you can use is an easy boot. This is quite simple to fit onto the horse. Get that on over the hoof. Try this at home, because these do have to be made to fit your own particular horse. And it also, although they're very easy to fit, you do have to find the technique to waste no time. When you get in at the end of a competition, if you've been unfortunate and you have lost a shoe, then take your horse to the farrier straight away and have a replacement put on. If you trot the horse up for the final vetting without a shoe and he's lame, you're out, you're eliminated. If, on the other hand, you take the time to have a replacement done, then you've got far more chance of getting through that final vetting. And let's face it, at the end of the day, that's what's going to be counting. You're also going to need quite a comprehensive first aid kit, not just for yourself, but for the horse. So here we have plenty of things that can be shared by horse and rider, including the homeopathy competition set. It's got the arnica and all sorts and everything that will help for a horse that's dehydrated or tired. It'll also help with the rider. You can actually take these if you have, or take the arnica if you have a headache. So they're ideal. They can be used by both of you. And the less gear you have to carry, the better. Plenty of bandages and things like that, because at the end of the day, it's quite possible that the horse could knock itself while it's out on course. So carry some bandages and some dressings. Make sure you've got disinfectant and scissors and all the usual first aid things that you would keep at your stables at home. Hopefully you won't need them, but there are occasions when the rider needs them more than the horse. Moving on to the grooming kit, any basic grooming kit from home is fine, but add to it some Vaseline, a small pot of Vaseline is ideal. You can grease the horse's front legs, you can grease his heels, and that'll help him slide over any rough boulders and things like that. And also if somebody rides a little bit close to you, then it should help with any knocks. A very important part of your grooming kit is your stethoscope, because all endurance riding, it's the pulse at the end of the day that makes a big difference. Learn how to use this at home and use it as a training aid. If you ride the same ride on a Sunday, doing the same speed over the same distance, take the pulse before you start, as soon as you get back to the stables, and then letting the horse stand for 10 minutes, take the pulse again. If you write it down over a period of time, you'll actually find how your training in the week is working and how much fitter your horse is getting. So the stethoscope is a very important part of any endurance grooming kit. Also, with the British weather, you are at least going to get wet 2 or 3 times during a season. So make sure you have a good heavy-duty waterproof riding coat. When you start doing more than 20 miles, you'll probably find that one coat isn't enough and that you'll have to change halfway through a ride. Also, make sure that you have a good quality short riding coat, preferably one that doesn't rustle so that you don't frighten the horse as you're going along. The faster you're going, the more it's going to make a noise. So this Musto jacket is absolutely ideal. If you're unfortunate enough that your horse has to wear any protective boots of any type, like overreach boots, make sure they fit very well and that they're clean, and always take a spare set just in case you lose one along the route or in case something happens and it breaks. The same with fetlock boots or any sort of brushing boots. Always take spare sets and always make sure that the insides are clean, which this one isn't, but then I have just used this. Spare girth sleeves, they're ideal. If you don't actually change your girth, then at least you can just change your girth sleeve along the way if you have a problem, especially if you have a horse that's very sensitive and might start to rub. Good quality girths are essential because they're going to take an awful lot of wear and tear. So make sure whatever you choose is good, is supple, soft and fits well. If you have to use numbness or anything underneath the saddle, again, choose something that isn't going to move and that you're happy with. It's too late when you're out on course and you find that whatever you're using is slipping back and you're having problems. When you're away from home competing, some horses will refuse to drink when they're actually on course. So a good trick is to soak a bucket of sugar beet and have that taken around with you. You can always add some molasses into it to make it sweeter still. And even the fussiest drinker or feeder will usually take a good handful of that every time your backup crew sees you. Once your horse is starting to drink, then you can add your electrolytes to your sugar beet even, especially if you have a horse that won't drink plain water. Drinking is essential for both the horse and the rider when they're out on course. So if you are away from home for the first time, take some water in the containers from home. Some horses will actually refuse to drink strange water, and the last thing you need is a horse that's saying, no thank you, I'm not drinking that, it's not what I'm used to. You can also start by adding a little bit of peppermint or something like that to your water at home several days before you travel, especially if it isn't possible for you to take all the water that you're going to need for the trip. Once you arrive at the competition, you have to allow at least half an hour before your vetting time to give you a chance to go down, collect your bib, find out where the tack inspection is going to be, where the farrier is, and then where the vet check itself is going to take place. The tack inspector is going to check that your saddle is safe, your girth straps, your stirrups and your stirrup leathers are all correct and nothing's going to break. They'll also check your hat to make sure that it's up to the new standards. The length of any crop that you carry, it mustn't be more than 30 inches, and also they will have a general look over your bridle to make sure that the stitching's done and nothing's going to drop off.
Well, we better get a horse out and go to a vetting.
Have a nice ride.
Yeah, and you. We'll see you later. Yes, and good luck.
Thank you.
We've just heard that they might not be actually sticking to your correct start time, and that if you're ready, you might be allowed to pop in a gap and start early. So while we're down at the Secretary's tent, we'll find out, because obviously we've got about a 6-hour drive at the end of this, so if we can start early, that's ideal. We can get home a little bit earlier.
Do they do that usually?
No, they don't normally do it, but this ride is that well organised and that well marked. It's very rare you have any problems out on course, so they can afford to let a few extras go through. That's the difference between going to a well-run ride, and Cotswolds is brilliant. Once you've loosened the horse up by leading him around quietly, make your way down to the farrier inspection, because this is what takes place first of all. It's your duty to make sure that the horse is well shod and doesn't need any farrier work to be carried out. And also bear in mind that the farrier there can charge you whatever he likes. So you can end up paying £5 for one nail. That's a lot of money if you have several nails per shoe. Oh. Right, so we found the farrier.
Hi.
Tack is down there.
Oh, good
So-
get this morning.
Right, where are we going to take these? Go and get our numbers from.
We're going to find the secretary, which I should think is over here.
Behind us.
When you go down, if your horse has a logbook, you hand in your MasterCard at the same time that you collect your number bib. You also check at this point that there's no route changes and that things are running to schedule. If the vetting is going to be slow, then it might mean that you're going to be a little bit late leaving. And they might give you something to tie on the saddle in case you lose your horse.
Where it isn't mowed.
Whatever, so. And they might ask you for some money in a minute.
140 please.
We're going to get into a muddle here.
Sorry, are we going a bit fast?
Yes, 124
Right, tell us
and
to stop.
125. 124, yeah, and 125.
Yeah.
Same number.
144?
Yeah, oh, it's just got the horses.
I got
Yes,
165.
okay. Hello. Yes, you've got you're an odd number there, aren't you? That
Odd
'cause-
person, odd
well,
number.
No, it's because I saved some numbers, but I filled them all up, and so you had to have one that was way out.
I was looking at it thinking, I'm not sure if this is supposed to be 145
no,
or not.
it's right. It's
Lovely.
165.
Okay.
Jill told
Thanks.
us,
Right,
yeah.
what about the rides leaving earlier?
Thank you.
Oh yeah, somebody said you can start a bit earlier. Is that
If you
correct?
want to,
If you
yes,
want to.
yes,
All right.
yeah. Just so long as you let everybody know. Well, not us, but the
The
timekeepers.
timekeeper.
Yes, so
Yeah,
long as
lovely.
they know, that's not a problem.
Smashing.
Okay, have a nice
Thanks.
ride.
Thanks.
Right,
Bye.
okay, bye.
Numbers 194. Wait.
Long Rangers out there.
The reason I've got red and green is because he is a young horse as well. And it's just warning people that I am sitting on dynamite. That's gone in a bit better. Good boy. All right.
Oh,
Right,
you've
we'll
got your
just-
socks on over your tracksuit, over your flippers.
It's habit. Because if I'm on a long 100 miler or anything like that, I should take my socks off and put fresh ones on without taking my joggers off.
All right.
So I can keep my feet fresh. Oh, here we are, greening. No, don't disappear for God's sake, madam. Right, it's just having his feet checked now to make sure that the shoes are good. It's the rider's stop. It's the rider's duty to make sure that the horse is recently shod and that the shoes are good, clenches are down, and that, you know, as is physically possible, you know, the shoes are on, so you shouldn't lose one.
That's fine.
Thank you. Just got a little bit too excited. When you go to the vet, he will check your horse's pulse rate. This will be recorded on the sheet for the day. He'll then ask you to trot the horse up around a bollard at the top. But my advice here would be trot the horse away from the vet and then come back to a walk. Walk around the bollard at the top and then ask the horse to trot in a nice straight line back down to the vet. You want the horse to stand as still as possible at this time because you can be eliminated if your horse is playing around. And you'll definitely be eliminated if your horse takes a pot shot at the vet with the back leg. Making sure, having an overall look at the horse. Checking his legs for lumps and bumps. Oi! That's not allowed.
Would have been quite dramatic.
Right, come on.
See you later.
Oh, thank you. Once you've passed the vet, you then need to tack the horse up as quickly as you can. Now this can be done by either carrying the tack down with you if you've had to park a long way from the vetting area, or you can take the horse back to your vehicle, get your tack, any boots or anything else that you use on the horse, and then go straight back down to the tack inspector. When you're doing your girth up, what you need to make sure is that the martingale strap or breastplate, whatever you're using, is dead centre. Because if it isn't, you're going to be in the saddle for so many hours. If it's slightly over, it'll give you an awful rub. And then the horse is likely to go lame simply because it's being rubbed rather than, you know, it's knocked itself or anything like that. What they're doing is just checking all the stitching. It's fine. Any boots that the horse happens to be wearing. The hat that the rider has on has to be a certain number.
I better read it.
So that's got to be checked. They'll check the stirrups for any wear and tear. Make sure that the leathers have got good stitching on them in case, you know, they fail when you're out there. And basically just to make sure it's a safety check more so than, you know, like the children have pony club tack and turn out and that type of thing. This is just literally to make sure everything's well maintained, everything fits. There,
Bill.
fine. Rider's boots will have been checked, but then he has proper riding boots on anyway. Anyone who's like this lady who's got a whip, or this person here, make sure that it's not over 30 inches. She's riding in a different sort of boot, so they have to be checked that they have a heel. And basically just to make sure that everything that's been used is nice and serviceable.
All right. Well, and you can go.
Thank you.
Well done. How are you doing?
Just stop nice and quietly so you can settle in. During the ride, the role of your backup crew is very important. When they meet you out on course, the first job for them to do is to offer the horse water. Allow the horse time to think about whether it wants a drink. Don't just have the bucket thrust in front of its nose and then whipped away really quickly.
Like time to stop the steam train. I'm sweating, I don't know about the horse. We got slightly confused whether we were going left and right and had to consult the map. Oh yes, please.
Every time you see her, if you give her a drink, it's very important that the rider drinks.
Especially when you're hanging on to this. Just fight the whole way.
Go on, drink as much as you want.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Oscar's drinking well.
Lovely, thank you. Yeah, if you can have the sugar beet for us. I mean, just get it out. You can still take your photos for later on and that. And he's drinking well. So you can put some electrolytes, sugar beets in one of those containers with the lid that I went through this morning with you. But they're actually drinking, so they can have the electrolytes in the sugar beet.
Do we wash them down?
David's got the sponge in that there.
I'll grab a water sponge. Put down on his neck.
horse can be washed down. He can have his neck under his belly, between his back legs, and around the back of your saddle area, around the back behind your legs, so you don't get that nasty, sticky sweat that encrusts itself. And it's going to take you the next week to get off.
Just round the other side, just please. Just down through there. Just down his neck a little bit. That's it. Just squeeze it down.
Jill Smedley's just gone back. They're out. Right.
They're out. What happened?
Don't know.
Oh hell. Right.
Right, you need to catch up in a few minutes.
Yeah, we will. I mean, it was a sign and it was just a little bit confusing. So I've got landing back now.
You have to learn to read first. That helps as well.
Bosky went a bit funny back there, and I thought he was lame. I was so busy looking down to see if he was lame that I rode straight past the markers and ended up, Jill started yelling, "You're supposed to go left," but I was so busy looking down at his feet that I nearly missed the route.
If the horse still refuses water at the second meet, try it with sugar beet, nicely soaked and fresh. If it's a very hot day, sugar beet can go rancid very quickly, so it might be wise if you pop a little bit of peppermint essence or something like that in it. If you're unfortunate enough to get lost, don't panic. Go back to where the last marker was that you can remember seeing. The essential thing is that during the ride, you don't want to turn off onto any route that isn't marked.
Yeah, you like that, don't you, eh?
If you do get lost, you'll have a map with you. There'll be trial riders out and about. Just take your time, retrace your steps, and very soon you'll pick up the course again.
Well, I don't know how far we've gone, but we're still pulling like a train.
Go.
I don't need rest yet. One battle between me and him. He wants to, I think it's a race and he's got to keep up with all the others.
If you're out in open moor, the best thing is just stay where you are and don't move. The trial riders will come out and will sweep you all up. If you're unlucky and you have a fall, if you need help, stay where you are and tell the next rider that comes past. They'll then ride on until the next checkpoint or the next Raynet station or something like that. They'll get help to you. Now it could take a while depending on where you are. The main thing is that you don't go off and move. You stay put. The last thing they need is for the ambulance to be sent out or a doctor to be sent to you and find you've disappeared. If the horse is injured and you need a veterinary assistance, again you have to stay put. It's no good thinking Neddy's fine and we'll walk on a bit because you've been there 20 minutes waiting for somebody to get to you. If your horse is injured and you do ask for help, it is seen that you have retired. Somebody will get to you as soon as is physically possible.
Right, if we just go on.
Oh, I'll shut this gate for you.
Lame. Bosky's lame. He's lame. He's gone lame.
Brady, get his over his quick shot. Quick as you can.
You just went.
Yeah. He must have stood on something or twisted something.
Nothing at all on the foot to
show, is
No
it?
cuts or anything behind his little rabbit.
Where do you reckon he's named
In the front somewhere.
She will.
Bum, bum, bum.
She's not rubbed there or anything. There's no stone in there or anything.
It's the other front there.
Come on, cover it up. Come on. That's the way it goes.
If he's just stood on something, it please.
Oh, rubbed him, has it, the boots?
How far is it to the venue?
You got it. It's all men. You just got top of the hill.
Pulled his shoulder or something.
And you've got 20 minutes to get in.
Oh, how far is it?
3 hours, that is.
Yeah, I know. What's the distance?
Roman.
No.
You've got to go a bit further. You've got to go up and round.
Up and around, that's kind of, and we're there, so that's 1, 2, 3, we're talking 1.5 miles.
1.5 miles.
Oh, that's going to be disappointing.
Take it quietly.
Castle going across the finish line.
My feet are killing me.
He's going to go and get the car.
I'm tired. I got off the horse. Look. I've just spent 3 hours of holding on and pulling. I mean, I've just been really physical for 3 hours. I think I need some chocolate. Look! I'm tired!
We've got half an hour now to prepare the horses for the vetting. And that's from the time you cross the finish line. So by the time you walk back to your lorry and get everything sorted, wash them down, and one thing and another, it doesn't take long for that half an hour to go. So it's difficult weather here for crewing because it's windy and yet it can be very warm if you're out of the wind. So you've got to decide now whether to put water on them or whether to put rugs on them or anything like that. So it's
Don't go over his groin.
difficult. Yeah, don't go over the quarters. Don't want water on the quarters at all because they can cramp, and with a young horse, get a rub on them. Because you don't. Thanks, Mandy. I didn't notice that, Paul. Sorry. The breeze will actually. Yeah, I know. The breeze will actually cramp up muscles very quickly, especially with horses that aren't, you know, like he's done 20 miles. That's all he's able to do at the moment. So yes, please.
It feels like that at a young paddock.
But yeah, just pop this round so it doesn't flap round. What you've got to remember when you're doing the horses ready for the vetting, it's not attack and turn out. It's not, you know, best condition. All you want to do is make the horses as comfortable as you possibly can, get the sweat off them, let them relax, and if you need to put more water on to get the pulse down, then put it on the neck, under the belly and between the back legs. But apart from that, just let them unwind. I mean, they've just worked quite hard.
Finally, you're not pulling. This one could be taken back now.
He's 44, right, we'll just get a rug on him and leave him quiet.
He was more starting. Oh, this one was.
Yeah, he was 48 to start, and that was with the surge at the very end. Horses that are just starting this sport quite often have higher pulses than they will have maybe in a year or 2 seasons. So it's very important not to think, oh gosh, he's no good for this because the pulse was high. It's quite simply that they come into the sport, they get used to it, they get relaxed about everything, they've seen it, they've been there and they've done it. And I mean, Bosky this morning was 38, and that's excellent, that's brilliant, that's a nice resting pulse. He had a surge, so he was 48, so we can handle this. It's what it is at the end of the day that we're waiting to see. Thank you, Jack.
Oh yeah.
He's got to go down to setting anyway. He's got to be down before he can travel. So he might as well go down to setting.
Oh, he's lame, all right. I reckon got shoulder again.
44.
At this vet inspection, they'll check the horse over for lumps and bumps and make sure you haven't got any saddle rubs or the mouth is bleeding, anything like that. They'll take the pulse over a minute. The vet will then ask you to trot the horse up.
Okay, can you trot him away to the end of it, please?
Yes.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, I knew it did.
Do you want me to measure his pulse rate anyway?
The pulse will be taken for a second time. If it's over 64, unfortunately, you're eliminated.
Lovely, thank you. But lame.
Well, we finished the ride, and unfortunately Mandy's horse was lame at the final vetting. That is very much the way it can go. It never always has a perfect ending. And I actually made the decision when I sent the entries in that Mandy could borrow my Gold Series horse because I thought she would have had a much nicer ride. Unfortunately, I don't think that was quite the case.
No, I think it tanked me all the way around. No, it was thoroughly enjoyable though. The horse stayed sound up to about 18 miles, didn't he? He was absolutely full of it, and we don't even know how he went lame really. Could have stepped on a stone or pulled a muscle. We brought him in quietly for the last couple of miles, but unfortunately he trotted up lame. But I'd recommend it for anybody because it was thoroughly enjoyable. People are nice, it's lovely scenery. You don't even notice it was 3 hours because you think out for 3 hours, goodness me, that's going to take ages and it's a long time, but it just flies, doesn't it?
You have to listen to your horse when you're on these competitions. And the more you train, the more you get to know whether your horse is trying to pull the wool over your eyes, whether it really is tired, or whether it's maybe just saying, nah, I can't really be bothered today, I don't want to do this. Or whether he is genuinely tired, whether you have got the start of a problem. So it's very much a case of listen to your horse and listen to your instincts. You know what your horse is like at home. Allow for a little bit of difference because obviously they get keen and things like that. But at the end of the day, you want the horse to go back out and be able to do more competitions through the rest of the season and the seasons to follow. And another thing, when Mandy got back, her legs were shaking and everything else. So take care of yourself. Eat, drink plenty of fluids, water or one of the, ice-like type drinks, that type of thing. But take care of yourself and the horse. When we go home now, the horses are going to be rested. So Bosky will be checked over by a physiotherapist this week and have a look to see if there's any underlying problem there and find out exactly what is wrong with him. And Max will have a few days off because although they've only done 20 miles, Max is going to be mentally very tired. He's had the stress and strains of the journey, the staying in the overnight stable in a strange place, and then, the journey home after the competition. He will be rested now for 3, maybe 4 days, and during that time I shall make sure he gets Blue Chip Feed Balancer because that'll help him to utilise the feed and to help any weight loss that we might have suffered through the stresses and strains of this competition. So hopefully, here's to the next one in a fortnight's time.